Welcome to this live learning. This will be on human resources teams or people teams and how they can use Confluence. We'll certainly cover a lot of stuff, so I'm glad y'all are here. Dom, welcome. I'm going to drop a quick poll as people come in. How do I best phrase this? There we go. What time of day? So just a very tiny question to ponder as you go. Just what time of day is it where you are? It is early for me. So I would say morning. We'll give folks a little bit of time to join us here, and then we're going to jump into our content. And so far, it is morning and afternoon for folks. All right. Hopefully, it's not too early for the rest of you all. It's about 6 in the morning for Rob, so. But I really enjoyed doing this, and I have some delicious coffee, so no harm, no foul there for me. Welcome, Kima. Good to see you, my friend. All right, got about 20 folks. We'll give people another few minutes to trickle in here before we get kicked off. We'll remind folks this is recorded. I'll remind you as we go through this, just as folks come on in. Recordings are made available by YouTube shortly after this. It takes it a little bit of time to process and spin around. But this will be available for all of posterity. Murilo, welcome. Chad, you're on the other side of the continent. Got it. Dom, no need to apologize. I'm here for you. And again, this will be recorded, so you won't actually miss anything. You can come on back. All right, we've got about 30 folks, team. We're going to jump on in and just get started here. Like most of my trainings, we're going to have a couple of slides to orient us on the concepts and ideas we're talking about. And we're going to go back and forth between a few slides and then a hands-on live demonstration in Confluence. The version I will be using is called Confluence Cloud Premium. Almost everything I show you can work in every version of Confluence, though. So if you're on standard or free, it should work. I'll do my best to call out if there's differences, if there are things that you wouldn't see in standard or free. The biggest things to note if you see me using any kind of AI tool, any kind of artificial intelligence, Atlassian intelligence, that will be in Premium and Enterprise. You might see that demonstrated with when we talk about automations or when we talk about things like search. So just a heads up there, the AI tools are on the higher, the paid tiers of Confluence. Otherwise, everything I show you should work in every flavor of Confluence. If you're on Data Center, which is the self-hosted version, the UI is going to look different as well. So just a heads up there. Please be aware of that. Quick way of introduction. My name is Rob. I've been using Atlassian products since about 2013, but I've spent my career in IT and tech, mostly on the systems side, and mostly working with HR teams. Early in my career, I ended up working at a company that made HR software, and then at a different large company, ended up helping support their HR team with their systems. Predominantly Jira, the ticketing system made by Atlassian, and Confluence, the knowledge base wiki collaboration platform made by Atlassian. And my history with it is I was never trained. I literally walked in, someone pointed at an icon and said, "That's Confluence," and they walked away. And that made it hard to use the system. Part of my job was to use it to document process or to put in requests for help or to just know what's going on. And I was never instructed or shown how it worked. So that made it hard, and that's why I do a lot of these trainings. I want to make sure folks, like everyone who's listening, don't suffer that way. They don't have challenges using these tools. One, because it's frustrating. We are all experts in something and we don't want to fight with the system, but also because we can get a lot out of them. These tools can help us do our jobs more effectively or give us the support and structure we need to excel and do things we couldn't do otherwise. Naveen, welcome. It's good to see you. I also hold multiple Atlassian certifications. I'm an Atlassian, what do they call us now, champion, and a subject matter expert. So I help them figure out certifications and things like that. Now, this is all on YouTube, obviously, which is great. You can see and hear me. I cannot see and hear you. So please use the chat to ask questions. I will be using the chat to ask questions, respond to them, have some discussion going, but I'll also have these question and answers, those Q&As. And you can see one right now at the top of the chat. It's just asking what time of day is it where you are. Morning, Kyther. So I will have other Q&A as we go. Some I will also put up as a slide and ask. Some I might just drop in as a Q&A because it's top of mind or it's relevant to what we're talking about. So that's a very easy way to interact. Just click on the answer that you think best fits you or is correct. But also, please use the chat to ask questions. We have a lot of super smart people in here who have used Confluence in different ways. And so I'm not the only person you can learn from today. So if you see someone ask a question or if you have an idea on how you have used something, please put it in the chat so other people can also benefit. Also, selfishly, I will get to learn. And I really appreciate when I get to learn from other folks just because I only know what I know. And you all know a lot more than me because there's more of you. I am also a professional content creator and trainer. I'm independent, so I do this all on my own. And there's different ways you can support me to help make sure I can keep doing that. The easiest is to hit the like button. It's the thumbs up just down below the window. So if at any point during this you like what you're hearing, just hit the like button. This helps other people find it, but also tells me that this is useful content to you. Also, subscribe. I have regular videos that I put out around Confluence, Jira, Atlassian products. And that'll get you notified when that happens. So liking and subscribing, simplest way to support me. And you can also share this video. I guarantee you there's someone you work with or someone you know who could benefit from this. So send them a link, click that share or save button, and just pass along the information. We've got a pretty good agenda. When I first started doing these trainings, they were 45 minutes, not long enough. Then they were 60 minutes, and sometimes that's not long enough. This one is 90 minutes. I will get to as much of this as I can. We will probably wander onto some different topics, which is totally fine. But my intention is to get to all of these concepts and ideas. And again, we're going to go back and forth between talking about these conceptually as a slide, and then also practically going into Confluence and using it to show you how the templates work, to show you how to flip on a public link, to demonstrate how automations work. Now, we won't be able to talk about every way Confluence can support HR teams, and that's where I expect you all put questions in the chat. Now, I will keep a running list of them. If I cannot answer them live, I will have a follow-up, either a video, and I also have a Discord channel where there's a great community sharing information, so I'll drop answers in there as well, and I'll drop a link to that, if I can find it very quickly, right here. So there's about 200 folks in that Discord sharing live information. That's another way to share ideas and get best practice, that kind of thing. All right, here's our first question. It looks like most of us, it's the morning, which is kind of good to see. Wouldn't want people staying up too late. I'm going to add another poll, and this poll is going to be a 1 to 4 question, and it's just how familiar are you with Confluence? A 1 is not at all. All the way up to a 4, you're super comfortable with it. And that's just your own subjective thing. It's not saying, oh, are you the world's most foremost expert? It's just you feel comfortable going in or telling a new team member about it or explaining it to someone who maybe hasn't seen it. And while you answer that, I will take a sip of delicious coffee. There is another way you can support me. You can become a channel member. Folks like Chad have done this, and you'll notice that Chad's chat is a little bit different. So that's one of the perks, but also you get early access to my videos. And when we meet in person somewhere, I will buy you a coffee. So just how familiar are you? 1, very comfortable. You feel like you could describe it to a new team member. That's a 4, sorry. A 1, you don't know what I'm talking about. Or you've heard about it or maybe been forced to use it, but you're kind of like, I don't know. When I started, I was a 0. Again, I did not know Confluence existed. I had used knowledge bases, but I had not used this particular tool. So we're going to start out just kind of what even is Confluence. Now, it has evolved over the years. It started out, and when I first used it, just as a knowledge base, a place you would go to stuff information. For example, at my first job, the HR or people team used it to store onboarding information. Great, I'm a new worker. I go there. What are my benefits? Or, what trainings do I need? What documentation do I have to provide? Over time, it has evolved, though, from just being a knowledge base, kind of a static place you stuff things, into a much more active collaboration platform is what they're trying to, what they're calling it now. And they are adding more tools to help support this, which is great. So less of a place that I would look at once a week and more of a place I'm going regularly on a daily basis to share information or work together. Now, it's used by many teams. Software teams might use it to support or store their software documentation. People, HR teams might use it to track policy information or compliance. You might have recruiting teams using it for their referral policies. You might have support teams doing it for a help center. You might have a product team using it as a release notes platform for public customers. So there's many ways to use it. Kyther, I didn't realize you had 3 cats, and I didn't realize one of them was named Confluence. I love that. Does it have the little Confluence logo in its fur on its forehead? So again, I think of it less of a wiki because in my mind that is not stagnant, but just not a dynamic place, and more of just a living, breathing collaboration platform. The analogy I use is it's like a library. And as I talk about what's in Confluence, I'll come back to that analogy. But Confluence is the library, the building that houses all of our information and is a gathering space to go to share knowledge, information, tips, best practices, videos, books, whatever. So you might be asking yourself, why would we use Confluence over something else? Every place I have been, I have used Confluence because I was forced to. And what I mean by that is that's just what the team happened to have. And this isn't good or bad necessarily. I joined after the company was founded or whatever, or after they decided. But there are some benefits to Confluence. And if you aren't using Confluence yet or you're thinking of switching to any system, you always want to consider what's the best thing for the team. Nerium, you use it for video games. I would love that. I assume you mean like recording information about them or building them and not playing video games in Confluence. But I'd love to hear more about that. Maybe if you're in the Discord, if you could drop some information or something here live so people can see it. But that's another great example. There are people who also use Confluence for personal projects and tracking things. I've got an upcoming session with Kyther, who's in the chat, around how she uses some of these tools, not for corporate use, but for their own benefit, which is pretty neat. And there's a lot of benefits to it for groups. Having a single source of truth is incredibly important. When we think of our HR teams, you don't want them to be confused about where the actual policies live. You don't want your new hires confused over where to go to get help for onboarding. You don't want someone confused about where to go to file a complaint. So having a single place that everyone knows, oh, I go to Confluence and I go to this thing called the HR space and that's everything I need is insanely important. It also provides company-wide access. Using Confluence, typically most, if not everyone in an organization is going to be in there. And so everyone can get access to these things. And it also has a lot of different features that help us help us maintain and build our knowledge and our learning platforms. I could not find a good picture for single source. Most of them were around coffee, and I like coffee, so that's why we have a person pouring coffee, like single source. But again, everything in one spot is a massive benefit. Especially for a human resources team that typically has compliance or typically has a little bit higher touch around things or a little bit more concern. And taking a look at our poll, actually most of us are not familiar with slightly less than half of us are not really familiar with Confluence, which is good to hear, and I appreciate that you're joining us. For the folks who are 3 or 4, watch the questions in chat and see if you can help folks out, see if you can get to them before me. This single source is important, but it can be many different things. And again, how your team uses it will differ based on your needs. For example, you might decide to have all of your team-facing documents, all of the things that you need your HR team to know about in Confluence in one area called a space. And if we think of our library, Confluence is the building, spaces are the rooms in the library. They're just a way to organize all of our stuff. Spaces can be locked, so only people in HR can see it. So maybe you have internal documentation or sensitive information that only HR team members should see or only your employee escalations team should see. You can put it in a space that is controlled so only those people get to see it. Similarly, you could do the opposite. You might set up something called the company hub, which we'll take a look at, where everyone in the company can go to and they can see upcoming events, or they can see, how to request help, or spotlighting a worker to showcase their great work. The point is, though, regardless of how we use it, internal, external, closed, open, it's one place people know to go. And so they don't have to worry about, am I in the right spot? Everything they need is there. Now, access is also an important consideration. As companies grow, there tend to be more systems, and then you have to buy licenses and make sure people can access. Typically, organizations, most, if not all the people there will have access to Confluence. And this makes it easy, because then you don't have to worry, does new hire number 7 have the ability to see all of these things? And this reduces the burden on the HR team, because hopefully it is set up in such a way that new hires just get this access. They can just go in and you can expect they can get these things. You don't have to work with IT for every single new hire. Excuse me. There are also other access controls I've mentioned a couple of times, and I'll show you how some ways this can be set up. You can restrict visibility or edit access or the ability to add or remove documents from different spaces, different areas of Confluence. Again, from the HR people side, that's really important because we will have things we don't want to share with just anyone. And I've mentioned features. The advantage of a cloud platform like Confluence is that there's constantly new stuff being rolled out, and the disadvantage is there's constantly new stuff being rolled out. Even in this screenshot, you can see these are content types, and we'll go over these. We're going to pop into Confluence in a minute, and I'll show you what these look like. But they rolled out a new way of creating content called a live doc that just magically appeared one day. Now, they are release notes. There are things, if you're watching, you'll get advanced warning. But the big advantage here is there's new features that are being added to help support how we work. Now, it does natively integrate with other Atlassian systems. So many places I work also use Jira to capture tickets. Imagine you're a new hire and you have a question about benefits. You might put in a request on a help center. Confluence can talk to Jira just out of the box. We also have, again, all these security features to make sure the content that we create as an HR or people team is controlled, and that we can make sure only authorized people who should see it can see it. These are not all the features. I will talk about more, but these are just 3 that came to mind as I'm thinking about Confluence. This slide means we're going to teleport into Confluence. I do have another question, though. You'll hear me use the term HR or people team pretty much interchangeably. I'm just curious what folks call that group at their organization. So I'll put in a quick poll here. The team of people who handle, I will call it human resources. And I'll just do 3, HR, people, and something else. Oh, I'll check in people ops because I just saw that. There we go. And another question to ponder, ooh, I lied. Don't answer that question yet. I meant to go here. Nurium, I've seen the term people operations. For me, and in my experience, people operations is a part of HR. Oh, they turned into people experience. Right on. And names are important, right? Like what we call something shapes how it's perceived. That said, I'm curious just what groups call this function at their organization. And I'll come back to this. People in development, I love all these different options. I have worked at companies ranging in size from, a few dozen folks all the way up to about 40,000. Ooh, Chad. Maybe wrong audience, my friend. You're on your own there, bud. What we are looking at is Confluence Cloud Premium. Again, everything I show you should work in every version of Confluence Cloud. I will call out major differences. The biggest thing to be aware of, this will have the AI tools enabled. If you're on standard or free, you won't see those. But this is our landing page. This is what someone sees when they first log in. So I'll give you kind of a quick tour of the interface, and this has changed in the past few months. Along the left side, we've got our navigation bar, and this is how we move around Confluence. So I just click on these menus, and I can see spaces, again, the organizational units within Confluence. And what I see is based on my access. So I don't have to worry that I can see things I shouldn't. I only see things that I've been given access to. One big important thing if you're relatively new is you can actually customize your sidebar now. And this to me is like the best part of this UI update. Anything I put below this line will be automatically hidden. So if I don't use apps, I'll just hide it. I can always come back and change this, and this is unique per person. So that to me I really like. Otherwise, the navigation bar used to be super cluttered. We can do things like star information. So you'll see I have starred spaces, and then I view all spaces. So you can bookmark things in Confluence. I tell the HR teams I work with, bookmark your team's space and content and things that you regularly use. Chad. What is that emoji called while I'm looking at it? All right, so far, almost half of us still call it HR, and I say that because that, to me, is like the historic name or what people have been calling it the longest. And just a quick reminder, folks, if you like this content, hit the like button. It's the thumbs up at the bottom. We got about 5 likes. There's about 50 folks. If we could get up to half, like 25 likes, that would be stellar. Then we have these spaces. I mentioned that these are like the rooms in a library, and there's different ways to use spaces. Typically, you'll see 3 different kinds. You'll have some spaces that are named after a person. So, for example, there is a space just called Robert Heen. That is my name, and that is what's called a personal space. I always recommend groups turn these on because it gives everyone in the organization or that has access the ability to go in and just do whatever they want. This is intended to be a playground for each individual, your own personal way to store documentation. I use it as a place to draft things and prepare information before I share it with the company. So you might, on your HR team, have your team working in personal spaces and then moving content out into a team space. Now, you can have a team space, and here I have an example just called People Team Space, and this might be locked down so only the HR team can see it. And this might be information about, upcoming team events or a team all hands. This might be other information that you don't want the general company to have access to, maybe some internal policy documentation, promotion guidelines, things like that that are more sensitive. And this is where you could put all of that. And again, this could be access control, so only people in your organization can get to it. The third general type of space is just public space. And I'll see if I can quickly find a good example. Do I have an onboarding? I do. So you may also have a space like this one called onboarding, where everyone in the company can see it. And the goal here is this is information everyone will find beneficial, so we're not going to lock it down or hide it or restrict it. These are the 3 major ways to use them. There is a 4th kind where if you have projects, you might have a project space, and you use that for 3 to 6 months, and then you shut it down. So again, spaces are just containers of information. They'll have some kind of name, and the name is important because that is how people know what's in it. If I'm looking at a space called the People Team Space, I can be reasonably sure there's People Team information in here. Now, within the space, you'll have content. And that content typically shows up on the left-hand side here. And there's different types of content we can add. And this is where we'll talk about planning in the next little section. But the type of content we put in here kind of depends on what we need to do. So I'll just click this little plus. Live docs and pages are similar, and they are, in my mind, the stereotypical piece of content. They look like a Word doc. They'll have text. They'll have some formatting. They might have images or videos. They'll have attachments. They might have information pulled in from other systems like Jira. So maybe my HR team has Jira tickets, and I display them here so I can quickly see in Confluence, around all my other information, all of these support tickets that are coming in. Live docs are a little bit different. As soon as you make a live document, it's publicly visible. Whereas with a page, it's not, the changes aren't visible until you push a publish button. So live docs are relatively new, intended more for like instant collaboration, whereas a page is a little bit more, I'm lacking the words here, traditional, in that it's hidden until you push publish or update. Now there are two content types that are new to, or sorry, live docs are only in cloud, and whiteboards and databases are also in cloud. Whiteboards are for visual collaboration, and we'll use one of these very shortly. Is there nothing? There we go. They let you, it's like Miro or Lucidchart or Visio or Draw.io. It lets you put things on a screen and then put text on them and work together to build a thing. In this case, a plan for this HR space, and we're going to come back to whiteboards. You can also use them for brainstorming. Imagine you had a physical whiteboard, you put stickies on it, and you all reorganize the stickies, that type of approach. So that's our whiteboards. And then the other one is a database. Databases are more for structured content. Imagine you wanted to build a project tracker in Confluence. Kaithra, I would say that Google Docs is more like Google's version of Confluence Pages. Databases let us structure information. I won't talk too much about them here. I'll dig up some links and drop them in the chat though if we're interested. And if y'all would like a more in-depth dive for HR uses for these, please let me know in the chat. Because I can think of several ways these content types can be used specifically for HR. But for the purpose of this training, just be aware we have these different types of content that we can add, and each one has a slightly different use case. The live doc and pages mostly for sharing text or general information, whiteboards are for visual stuff, and databases are for structured content. Smart links are also in cloud. I really like these because this allows me to insert something into my content hierarchy, into the structure of my space, in a way that it'll just show up in the content hierarchy, which I actually haven't spoken about too much. Let me talk about that for just a second. If we think of the space like a room in a library, the content hierarchy is like the shelves. It provides a structure within the space. And so here, if I close all these real quick, I can see when I come to this space, there's a recruiting homepage, there's stuff about onboarding, there's projects. And you'll notice these little arrows. I can expand and see what's underneath them. So this gives me a way to visually organize information and makes it easy. If someone new to the HR team joins, they can come through here and explore and see, oh, here's the employee journey. Maybe I have to go work on that. Or if an employee, a new hire comes here, they can see onboarding and go, oh, who do I have to meet? So this content hierarchy is important. And prior to having smart links, there was no way to insert a link into the hierarchy. You would have to do something like have a page, and that page would then be kind of crammed in there. And I'm looking for this one, an example. So for example, I can put in, that's not what I wanted to do. That's the wrong link. I will put in the correct link. I can put in something like, in this case, a YouTube link, and it will insert it, but it won't put it like on a page. It'll actually put in the ability to just run it directly in Confluence. And so this gives me a lot of flexibility. It works, this type of feature works on something like 1,000 different systems. So if you have information for your HR team outside of Confluence, you can link it in using these smart links, and it looks like it's directly in Confluence. So it's a way of making it easier to use. Again, imagine you're a new hire and your company has all this great documentation in YouTube on onboarding. You can insert it directly into Confluence with just pasting in a link. And then it looks like it's part of Confluence. And then you can organize it under onboarding and maybe even rename it to something that makes more sense for your team. So these are smart links and something that's really useful. Nerium, I love that. It's like the Dewey Decimal System. I'm going to just drop another poll here real quick. About half of us are calling it HR. Awesome. And mostly just curious, where I live, it tends to be called the people team. And within that group, we'll have subgroups. So people operations tends to be, in my experience, a subset of the human resources team. Oh, I got a better question. I have a quick question about Nerium's comment. What is a Dewey Decimal System for? And I'm asking because I had to learn about this in school, and I haven't had to think about it probably in a decade. So thank you, my friend, for dredging up all of those memories. um, so this is Confluence in terms of a space. And again, this particular space is for my HR, my people team. Now, there is one special kind of space called the company hub. Up until now, everything I've spoken about, these spaces, um, are more targeted limited use. And I can go into the settings of this space and I have different features where I can control it. For example, I can limit who can see this space to just, myself. Or maybe I only say admins can see it. Or maybe I say only a specific individual can edit things in here. Also, what you are seeing is a beta release on a new way to handle permissions, which has me super excited. I will not talk too much about it here, but instead of ticking a whole bunch of little tiny boxes to describe permissions, we now have what they call roles. Role-based access control is the term. I'll drop a link in the comments if folks are interested in learning more. But this will likely look different if you're using Confluence currently. So just a heads up there. Got to find that link very fast. Whee! Not the button I wanted. So there is one, I can't really call it a space, but thing called the company hub. This is accessible to everyone who has a license to use your Confluence, and it's intended to be a place everyone just knows to go to get information. This is really important for HR, because typically HR is responsible for sharing information around upcoming events, or helping new hires find information, or directing people to benefits information. So this company hub has a lot of different options, and you can go and edit it similar to a page. But I recommend teams using this look at it every week and update it or change it and have a plan around how do we want to grow this? What will this do for our organization? Because this can help a lot of people find information quickly and reduce the burden on an HR team. Because you can have important announcements right at the top. And then people can click to see, performance reviews. Right, I have to go do that. Here's a link to go set them up. So this company hub is an important resource for folks, and it's instantly visible for everyone just over here. Now, I believe this is just in premium and higher, so this is one feature that might not be in standard, and it is something I believe you can flip off. So if your organization says, you know what, we're going to choose not to use the company hub, you can disable this link. Simon, you beat me to it, my friend. I believe as of now, this is premium and enterprise only. So when I say premium and up, I mean to say premium and enterprise tiers. But if you have access to this, it's a great tool because, again, everyone can see it, and it's for general information. If you don't have this, typically what I see groups do is during onboarding, they'll tell people about something like a people team space. And then they'll make sure on their first day they favorite it. They click this, there's a little tiny star. If you click more actions, they star it, and then they use this like a company hub. Okay. Yes, the Dewey Decimal System was for books. And it's a numerical system to define and describe where a book should be organized, I think. Again, I haven't used it probably since high school, a long time ago for Rob. Now here's kind of a leading question. How frequently do you plan out your documentation? And what I mean by this is how often do you sit down and say, hey, we got to figure out what we need to publish. What kind of content do we need to create? Or if you're starting to use Confluence, do you sit down and write down what you needed to do? And I ask this because planning is incredibly important. This is not just for HR teams, but for everyone. Tim, I love this. What kind of access is necessary to do this, Tim? This is more of a pop quiz, my friend, because you've brought this up. But Tim is correct. There is a bit of a workaround for not having the company hub. Now, it does require what's called I'll see if Tim can answer that one. It does require some special access, but you can reset the landing page when someone first opens Confluence. Stereotypically or by default, it's for you, which we'll see when we go back. But you could set it to a single page in the people team space. So when people open Confluence, that's just in their face. The challenge with that is once you navigate away from it, unless you've bookmarked it or know where it is, it disappears. So you have to go back to Confluence. So it is a way to approximate what the company hub can do. Planning is really important, though, for every team, but also for HR teams. And it's more than just taking 5 minutes to say, yes, we need onboarding information, especially for things in HR because it can be so sensitive and there can be regulation and compliance around it. We need to make sure we're making time to plan out how do we structure our information. And so this involves talking to your team, maybe talking to people outside your team, sketching things out, and then also reviewing it. Onboarding information, for example, you should look at every 3 to 6 months because your organization will grow and adjust and change to things. And you want to make sure the new joiners and new hires have the information they need to be successful. A quick coffee break for Rob. Also, we're up to 11 likes, which is amazing. If you like it, please hit like for me. Excuse me. And there are some other ways to support me. I'll talk about this more as we go. Directly under my head, there is a QR code. This QR code goes to a 4-hour Udemy course on Confluence, where I dig into, I call it everything you need to know about Confluence, as a user. I would have loved to have this resource when I was learning because it covers the ideas of what I'm talking about here, but also a ton more. So I'll drop a coupon link, and that QR code goes to a coupon link for it. Now, there's a tool in Confluence Cloud called the whiteboard that we can use to do this. Personally, I like physical whiteboards. I used to have a giant one on the wall behind me. But in Confluence, we have that content type, whiteboards, where we can go in and collaboratively work on something together. Now, this is really important because my team might not all be in the same place. And this is where Confluence, again, is a collaboration platform. I can pull people in from all over the world to help me build out the best possible structure, the best possible plan to create things. Now, this is also important because this plan will be in Confluence. And I'll show you an example of this, but I can then go reference it and adjust it and adapt it over time. I don't have to go open another system, but also because it's in Confluence, I don't have to pay an extra license for someone to go get access to Visio or whatever that other thing is. And then collaborate on it. Even if you're not using a whiteboard, you can share information in Confluence, and you can also restrict it. So you can put a access permission where only the people I say can view it. I want Tim and Miriam's ideas on how this works, so only let those people edit this thing. And Tim nailed it. Yep, the Confluence app admin can reset the landing page. Typically, this person is not on HR. Typically, this is like someone in information technology or IT. So if you want to change the landing page for Confluence to approximate that company hub, you might have to put in an IT ticket and explain what you want to do. Now, keep in mind, it changes it for everyone. You can't just say only people in a certain department, only, people named Rob. It'll be the whole company. When you collaborate, don't just run it by HR team, though. See what other teams think you should add, to that space, assuming it's not your own internal space. But if you have a public HR space, talk to other leaders, other groups, other people to figure out what you need to put in there. And back into Confluence we go. That Udemy course is free, Naveen. That is an excellent question. The link I gave you will get you a discount. All my live trainings are free, so everything on YouTube will remain free, so please keep joining me here. I'm offering that Udemy course as an additional resource. And again, I'm doing this professionally, so somehow I have to charge for things. But that course is paid. Again, it's over 4 hours of content. Back into Confluence, and I have an example of this. In this space, I have a whiteboard. And the neat thing with this is you'll notice different shapes. Some of these shapes are just colors and boxes. Other shapes are actually links to like a Confluence page itself, though. I'll back this up a little. So when I'm thinking through what do I want to put in this space, I might already have pages that exist, and I can represent them here just by grabbing like hyperlinks. So I can copy a hyperlink and just paste it in And now I can represent my employee journey somewhere on here. And then I can visually indicate what needs to happen. This planning step, again, is really important. I don't just want my team to go in and start throwing information into the space. This would be like having a beautiful library and then just throwing all the books into a pile in a room. It's in there, but no one can find it. Actually, a follow up on this, Naveen. If someone's looking to use this course and you have some kind of hardship, shoot me an email. It's more important to me that people learn and expand and grow than I make a couple bucks. So if you have a hardship and that would be very useful for you, pop me an email, let me know in Discord, and I can hook you up. Sorry, and by hardship, I mean you cannot afford to pay for the course, but it would help you get a job or be more confident in an interview or improve you in some way. Please reach out. It's more important to me that you have the support and tools you need. So just let me know privately. So this structure I can then use to build out my space. Now this is, again, something we should revisit. I asked the question, how frequently do you plan out documentation? And almost half of us just said plan. This is not uncommon, especially for HR teams, especially for documentation. We tend to assign this task to one person on the team, typically an analyst maybe, or a generalist. We say, hey, go figure out our documentation, and they do the best job possible. Did that email not come through? I will see if I can add my email to the screen overlay so folks can see it very quickly. I'll keep talking though. So this structure gives us guidance as we go and as your space and pages all develop and expand. Having this documentation to come back to you to say, hey, what should I be adding or how should I be adding it is very important, because you will have new people adding information. You will have new people, joining the team and doing different things. And you want to make sure they have somewhere they can go to look at, to know where to put the new policy or where to add the new onboarding information or where to go for recruiting. In the past, without this tool within Confluence, it's been hard because you had to give someone access to Lucidchart or some other system. But again, this is directly in Confluence. I don't have to do anything special or different. My email's down on the bottom left. Please don't spam me. I trust all y'all, but you can also email me questions about Confluence, anything I'm talking about, ideas for stuff. Please feel free to let me know, robert@heen.tech, way down there in the corner. So this is planning out the space. You could also do this again on a physical whiteboard. I like using the digital ones because I can click the share button and I can, send Andrew essentially an email, and then I can give him a special message. Hey, Andrew, what are your thoughts on this structure? And he'll get notified and get a note saying, hey, go check this out. Also, depending on how your system is set up, you can do things like send Slack messages. And you can also make this a public page, which we'll talk about very shortly. But we have different ways of pulling people in to collaborate. And this collaboration isn't limited just to these whiteboards. You can also collaborate on documents. You can collaborate on databases, on almost all the content we have. And teleporting back. All right, about half of us were planning our documentation weekly, which honestly is surprising and very good to hear. Typically, groups I work with, it's not quite weekly. A new poll, just how comfortable are we with templates or familiar? And specifically page templates. Typically when I say the word template, I mean page templates. There are templates in other places. For example, there are automation templates. However, it's much more robust up here in page templates. And quick coffee break for Rob. Kythra, my friend, you might be a bit of an outlier in terms of the planning, yes. Tim's got a good tip here. It sounds like, Tim, what you're suggesting What Tim is saying is spaces, and correct me if I'm wrong, my friend, spaces can be put into a category. So think of it just as a label or a tag on the space. The category could be something like people team or project, or it could be the designation for an org. So if the people team's organization code is 123, if you put that as the category, it makes it much easier for folks to find it. So if you have multiple spaces related to something, or even one space in that category, again, it's a way to look things up. It's also a callback to that Dewey Decimal System where we could have a numeric code to find things up. Miriam, I can't tell if you're joking here by saying the best job in the world, but yeah, I like planning things out. It puts me in that nice little happy like mental space. It's mentally soothing to go through and like pull it apart and rebuild it. Templates, though, are just a pre-formatted page. Confluence Cloud comes with 142 or something like that templates. So when you first turn it on, you're going to get buried in all of these different options. You can also make your own. And one important call out is templates can be global, visible to everyone in Confluence, or just in a single space. For example, you may have an internal HR space and you have a template for internal policies. So when you go make a new page, it can just be pre-formatted, but only you really use that template because you have access to that space. Alternatively, you may have a meeting notes template that everyone in your organization can use. And they are very, very useful for a number of reasons. There's a bunch of examples I can think of for HR. You might have policies. So you have a certain structure that your legal team or that you as the HR director decide. So when an analyst or someone makes a new policy page, it just drops in the formatting for them and then they just fill it out. This speeds up the content creation. That person doesn't have to guess what do I put and where, but it also makes it easier for someone reading it. They can go and they know what to expect. Onboarding pages can be templated, processes, pretty much anything. My typical rule of thumb, if I'm making a page with a similar structure more than once or twice a month, I might go make a template. The 5 minutes it takes me to do that, and I can copy and paste an existing one, will save me a lot of headache because then I don't have to guess going forward. But these are not the only possible templates you can create. Again, any structure on a page can be templatized. Don't keep this to yourself though. Talk to other people on your team. Figure out how they're making content because they probably have something. Thank you for clarifying, Uriam. And I'm glad you enjoy that. I'm glad you get to do it. I guarantee you there are other people on your team who are creating the same type of content repeatedly, and a template would save them a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And back into Confluence we go. So we're going to just start making some content. I'm going to add a new, maybe onboarding page. So I'll come down here, and what I'm looking for is this little plus button that says create. I'm going to make a page. Now along the bottom, there is this bar that pops up, and I still don't know what to call this thing, but I have some templates that are displayed down here. I'm pretty sure this is just tracking the most recent ones I've used, but you can see as I mouse over them, it's showing me what's on that template. So right away, I can get an idea of, okay, what's in here. Now, if I click on this, it'll insert the template, but I can also click all templates and just see everything in the space. Up at the top, and this is something I did not know about, you can search through the templates. Again, you'll have over 140 just because. So show your team this. If you type in the word, say, human, you'll get any template where that word shows up. So it's a great way to go just start skipping through things. Oh, a job offer. Awesome. Let's take a look at that. There are also other ways you can search, though. They're all categorized, and there's a whole bunch of different categories. Maybe you just want to see documentation templates or design, etc. You can also star templates. So something I always recommend folks do because there are so many, if you mouse over them and just click star, they'll get saved. But to use them, all I have to do, there's one for a policy in here somewhere. Nope. HR, there we go. I'm going to just insert this template, and you'll see it just get dropped onto the page. And this is the power of templates. I didn't have to type anything in. I didn't have to know what this emoji is called. It just all appears. Please start using templates if you aren't using them. Incredibly useful. You do have to be what's called a space admin to create new ones. And I have an entire training on templates, just an hour digging into all of the nuts and bolts. And I'll dig up that link as I'm talking. But you might have to work with someone for help here, and that's totally okay. The effort and time is worth it because your team won't have to fumble around and try and find uh, or recreate pages. Now, you might be yelling at your screen, but Rob, I can just copy an existing page and paste it in. Of course you can. However, then you got to go through and pick out and delete all the stuff you don't need. Another way you can do that is you can just have a page in your content hierarchy called template. That is annoying though, because then it's a page, someone else could do something to it, but also it takes up space in your hierarchy. And so it's much better to make a template, this feature, so everyone in your team can easily find it and access it. So these are templates, again, very beneficial to HR teams. Nerium is complaining. I know what you're saying, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Currently, only space admins, people who have administrative control over the space, have the ability to make templates. There is no way to empower someone else on your team to do that. So I couldn't say, awesome, I'm the space admin. Nerium, you can make templates, but nothing else. Chad has a very good call out. Chad, what is the name of that button, my friend? And while Chad's talking, I'll just go at it. And I haven't really spoken about macros, but when I'm editing a page, information. If I hit the / button on my keyboard or click this plus in the top, they have what they call elements or macros. And this could be something as simple as a blue panel to put information. Or this could be something that allows me to one click create a brand new page using a template. So this is another way to speed up my team. I do this a lot for meeting notes, and this isn't unique to HR, but I just come in here and I tell it, hey, where is it? Of course, it's not in alphabetical order. There we go. Weekly meeting notes. Whew. This will give me a button that I can just come to this page when it's published and push, and it will make a new meeting notes for me. So this doesn't allow me to create a new template. What this will do is make a new page with the template specified. So this can be very useful in instances where you have someone, I pick on policy analysts quite a bit. You might have a policies page where they just push a button and that opens up the new template and they start typing. They don't have to go up here and hit create. They don't have to go find the templates menu. It's just one push and off they go. Chad, smart buttons will trigger automations. Slightly different feature, which we'll talk about at the end of this, my friend, assuming I don't run out of time. All right, we're going to take a very short break, folks. I need some more coffee. I need to stand up. And I need to remember how to turn on the timer in Canva. But there's some links on the screen. One of them goes to Discord. And again, that is a chat platform I'm using to provide more support, more ideas, more places to communicate about Atlassian stuff. It's not just for HR. It's not just for certifications. It's for, anything around it. There we go. So that's the QR code on the left. Another way to support the channel, you can become a member. I have a couple of tiers. You get early access to my content, or directly under my head, this QR code will get you a discount on that Udemy course. But again, if you have some kind of hardship, financially that's a stress, let me know. Email's in the bottom right. And I have other options to help you all out. So please take a few minutes. I will come right back, but I'm going to stand up and stretch a bit. And then we're going to continue our discussion on how HR teams can benefit from Confluence. So I will see you all just very, very soon. All right, folks, and we're back. I've got some more coffee here. Hope you all have as well. Miriam, thank you so much for becoming a knowledge manager. This tier includes my entire back catalog, so live learnings after a few months will be locked down to only this tier of member. So if you're looking for a lot of content, I've been doing this 18 months now. Wow. This is the tier for you. Also, you get called out in chat with this nice green bar and have access to a bunch of like fun little emojis, like my friend the pangolin here. Okay. And it looks like, yeah, most of us are not comfortable with Confluence templates, so I'm glad we were able to talk about that. And this little timer is going to get to 0. I don't know what happens when it gets to 0, so I'm going to stop it before that goes off. All right, and onwards we go. Naveen, no worries, my friend. This is going to be recorded. Excuse me. So please step away. Come on back if and when you can. Glad you could join us. Just a quick kind of yes or no. Did you know you can share content publicly? This might be a little bit more limited use case for an HR team, but the way I've seen this done is through a feature called public links. Now, typically when we think of Confluence content, the content will be shared internally. We'll have people who work at our organization, and we're sharing with those people in our organization. What we can do optionally is share it with anyone on the internet. So we can just create a link called a public link and give it to other people. And as Miriam's calling out, you can extend this and you can actually share an entire space. So one use case for HR could be having a employee brand space. And I'll come back to use cases, but please be aware if you do this, this content is visible on the internet. It means that someone who doesn't work at your organization or doesn't have a license might be able to see this information. So I'm paranoid about using public links. There's good arguments to use them that I'll talk about, but just keep in mind that if you use these, you got to be careful with what you share. In Miriam's case, I would be overly cautious over what goes in this space and who can edit it, because it's possible someone put something sensitive and now the whole world gets to see it. Yes, the person who lives next to you or a competitor or, anyone else could find these links. So please just keep in mind that that's a risk. Now they first have to be turned on for the app. So it's possible your IT team just doesn't allow this, period, full stop. If that's true, you won't be able to do this. Next, the space you're in has to allow it. So your overall admin has to say, yes, this is okay, but then your space admin also has to allow it in your space. Then, if you can edit the page, you can share it. Oh no, Miriam, please tell me that didn't actually happen. It sounds like what Miriam is saying here is it's if you have contact information for your HR support team, for example, and that's on a public link, anyone who finds that page could contact them. Again, just keep in mind, it's the same as putting it out on Google so anyone can find it. Now, it does require multiple clicks to do this, so it's very hard to accidentally turn this on. And there are some ways space admins, the people with administrative controls, can monitor this. So if your team is using public links, make sure you're working with your space admin, maybe yourself, maybe someone else, to regularly go in and see which links have been turned on, to see how they're being used. And you can also disable them or block that specific page from being made public. You inherited the public space. That's kind of the worst possible scenario. This is an interesting challenge it sounds like Miriam ran into. If you inherit a space, you go to a new company and it has public links, either shut it down and review it, or jump on it immediately and scrub it for sensitive information just to be safe. So you might be saying, Rob, why would I use those? One of the use cases I've seen is with pre-hires. You have someone who may want to join the company or is in the process of being hired, and these are non-confidential policies or information that you can share out. Again, check with your legal team, your security team. You also, though, might have employee branding. You want to highlight how great it is to work at your organization. you can do this through a Confluence page and then just make it publicly accessible and include that in information you send to candidates or that you include on LinkedIn. So there are a lot of good legitimate use cases for this. We just have to be aware when you do it, anyone can see it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go do that right now. So I'm going to go, this page is kind of annoying. Do I have a page with any actual good content on here? Recruiting team. Nope, this is all basically placeholder information. Okay, well, I'll just pick this one. I'm going to go share this page. And what I'm looking for is this public link button. Again, by default, this is turned off for every page in the space. But because this particular page allows me to do this, I can then create this link and do something like drop it in YouTube chat. And now you can click on that link and you're going to see the page. Now, what this does not do is give you edit access. So this is a view-only glimpse of this particular piece of content that I have shared. If you have Confluence access in the top right, which I don't think any of you do have in this space, you can open this up directly in Confluence. So this is one way to share information outside of Confluence. Again, think employee branding, think pre-hires, think things you want to do to attract candidates, or other information you would want to share in a way that anyone can get to it. But keep in mind, it can result in some challenges. And I'm going to close that. And then I'll show you what I can go see as the admin in terms of how is it being used. And hopefully one or two of you have clicked on that link. But I can open up my space settings. I can actually just search for public. And I've got public links right here. And I can see 3 people have clicked on that link so far. Now, as the admin, I can turn this off for the space. So even if my company is okay with it in general, I might say, you know what, I'm going to disable this. I don't want, in this space, it's too sensitive, it's HR, no one should see it. Great. I can also do things like disable this immediately. Or I can block it. I can prevent someone from turning this link back on. So we do have these controls. However, kind of like how I want to plan out my content on a regular basis, I also want to regularly review what public links have been turned on to make sure the things listed here are acceptable and that they are actually things that I'm okay sharing publicly. And we're up to 5. So this is that public links. Again, I've seen it used for pre-hires. I've seen it used for, an FAQ about the organization. Other teams can use it for things like release notes, but it is publicly accessible, so anyone with that link can get to it. Now, I'm just going to shut this off. And now if you go to that link, you should receive some kind of error message. And it's just going to say we can't find the link. It's not going to say anything about what it is or it used to be live. It's just like, hey, I don't know. It's not there. So this can be very useful for teams. Again, it depends on what you're looking to share, but it does let you reach outside of your organization and help someone not in your org yet, or someone who is looking at joining your org, learn about it or get information they otherwise might not be able to. It can also help if you don't have access to add information to your public website, although definitely check with your teams to make sure the most appropriate way to share information. You don't want to go around all those controls. A bit of a leading question. This will be another 1 to 4, but how comfortable are you with automations? And helps if I can spell correctly, you with automations. 1, not very, all the way up to, again, our 4. And this is important not just for HR teams, but for really anyone working in Confluence or Jira, these tools, because these automations have a lot of great features, I'll say. The first, you might not even know what they are. Automations allow Confluence to take action for us. Now, the biggest challenge I have with automations is not knowing what they're capable of. And so I'll share a couple ways you can go learn about them. But keep an open mind around automations. Typically, if you as a user can do it by clicking around, you can automate it. Not in every case, but in most cases, you can go into Confluence, and if you can do it as a human, you can have the system do it for you. Now, there are some considerations. Lower tiers of Confluence Cloud have a limit to the number of automations you can run. The free instance, for example, I think it's 10 automations a month. The premium instance, it's something like 100 total per month. So if you have 50 people working at your company and they all run an automation every month, they can only do that twice on premium. On standard, Premium, I think, is 1,000 per person, and enterprise is unlimited. So just keep in mind there can be limits. So you might run into some bumps with that. Hey, Kythra, keep me honest. What have I not done on this slide? And a quick shout out to Kythra. I don't know if she's still here, but she's an amazing technical editor, and I really need to take her up on her offer to help me out more. Can anyone see the problem with this slide? It just hit me right in the face. Automations have a number of different components, or as I wrote it, components? I don't know how to say that word. They have to have a trigger. The trigger is what tells the automation to run. So it could be, in this screenshot, when a Loom meeting is recorded. It could be when a page is created. It could be when a content status changes. It could be many, many different things. But this is what tells that automation to kick off. Thank you all for laughing at me. I appreciate that. My wonderful, loyal channel members are the first to dive on me. I think you mean it's one of these. We won't go through every possible trigger. You don't have to memorize them all. I'll show you where you can see what they are. But keep in mind the system has to know when to run. It could also be scheduled. Every Monday at 1 a.m., go do something for me. Next week, we can have optional conditions. So the automation triggers. Maybe it then checks something. Does the name of the page have a certain word in it? Is the owner a specific person? Are there other attributes about the content that tell me I should keep going or I should stop? Tim, thank you. The one person who gives me some grace and reminds me that I am human. So these conditions let us control the flow of the automation. Only continue if. We do also have this thing called a branch. And this to me was a hard concept. I won't dig too deep into it. But basically, if we ask the automation to run every morning at 1 a.m., it can run against multiple pages. So I might say, hey, turn on every morning at Monday. If the page has the word meeting note in it, do this. The branch will then say, do this for every page with meeting note instead of just one page. Branches are also optional. Actions are required, and that's what the automation will do. So we have triggers and actions are required. The rest are optional. When I think through an automation, and I think I have a slide on this. I do not. The first thing to do is to think through, what do I want to automate? I would go to my HR team and say, hey team, what are you doing in Confluence that drives you nuts? Or what are you doing in Confluence repeatedly? Raise my hand. Every Monday I go through and I archive pages that haven't been used in a while. Great, we can automate that. And I'll get a list going of things I could automate. And again, the challenge for me with automations is just I'm limited by what I think it can do. Some examples, creating pages. So, every Friday morning, I might have it make a page called Weekly Reminders. Or every Monday I have it do that. And then every Friday, weekly report, where it just automatically makes a page for me. And then it notifies me to go fill out my weekly report. I can also have it go through and help clean up my space, take content out, put it in what's called the archive, the back room where it's not deleted. It's just not cluttering up the space. Automations can notify someone. So when something happens in the system, go send Kythra an email. Someone put a label on this page saying there's a typo. Go alert somebody. Or laugh at them, depending on who you are, Chad. So we're going to pop into Confluence. Again, we're not going to become super experts in automations, but my goal here is most people, almost the majority of us, said we are a 1, not very, and a plurality, 67%, are a 1 or a 2. My goal is to get us walking away being a 2 or a 3, maybe. To access automations, you have to be what's called a space admin. So if you are not a space admin, you can go talk to one or talk to your team, and then they can go in and access this automation menu. Now, there are templates in automations, and this is why I was clearer earlier. These are just kind of pre-built automations to give us ideas on what's possible. I highly recommend, if you're in that 1 or 2 bucket, to go through here and just look at some of these ideas, because they can help like give you fuel, they can help jog your memory, or give you a starting point on how these things can work. Keep in mind, some of these automations use premium features or might use something your team doesn't use, like Slack or Loom. But this is a great place just to get started. The other thing is, if you're on Premium or Enterprise, you can use the AI tool to create automations. Maybe I'll do one this way. Whenever a page is created, email Rob. Again, very simple example. This will both go create that automation, but it's also a way to learn automations. So if you have access to the AI tool, this is one way you can start to build your skills and get more comfortable with it, just to see what it did. Now, I'll use this as the starting point, but I've got a trigger. It's saying when a page is published, that's when this automation should kick off. I can optionally add conditions right from here. So I might say, you know what? Only run it if Rob made the page. Probably not the best example here, because if Rob made it, why would I want to notify Rob? But just an example of, we can add conditions, things that will make it only run if something is true. And that's where it's important to remember with automations, it only does what we tell it, but we should really understand what we need it to do first. So taking time to talk to my team, to sitting down with Chad and say, hey Chad, what are you regularly doing and how can I help automate it? To understand what he's doing, because then we can express it in the automation. The next thing we have to have is that action. In this case, my action is just sending an email. This is a simple example, but I can then do things like control what the email looks like, who it goes to, etc. I'm going to just delete everything and start from the top though, just to show you some of the triggers. Again, you don't need to memorize these. Just be aware that all of these different ways of kicking off an automation exist. When a piece of content is made, when a Loom video is moved, a page is archived, a page has a label added. Like, there's all these different things. And this is where it's important for us just to understand what's possible. So when we talk to our HR team, we can be aware and go, oh, I have an idea, we could go schedule this out to help support you. Similarly for actions, I'll just go in and click on then add action. I don't know how many of these there are, but there's quite a bit. So this tool is capable of doing a lot without a lot of customization or like no code. I can have it do a number of different things. Again, keep in mind, some of these things might not make sense for your organization. For example, if you're not using Rovo, it probably doesn't make sense to include an action to use Rovo. But most use cases can be handled. And again, I approach it from the standpoint of, if I can write down the steps and if I can click and go do it myself, I can probably automate it. And so then it's just a question of understanding, what does my team need to do to be successful? What kind of things do they need to automate so they can free up their time to go focus on helping workers or making a better onboarding experience? So those are automations. Again, simple examples include things like notifying someone when a certain page is edited or created, or doing things like automatically cleaning up the space by removing things from the content hierarchy and putting in the archive. All right, folks, quick reminder, if you're liking this, hit the like button. We're up to about 14 likes with about 30 folks. That's about half. I love that. Can we get higher? It's up to you. I guess a bit of a leading question. Do you have a content creation process? And I'll just drop another poll here. It'll just be a yes, no. And by that, I mean, some kind of structure around adding, changing, or removing content from your space. And I will drink some coffee while you all consider that. Uh-oh. First 4 are all no. Now, Confluence has a built-in feature called content status. I'll be honest, it's not the most robust thing in the world, but it is a starting point and it's free, and that can be good. These statuses are unique for every space. Now, the ones we're seeing here and the ones that we'll use are the default ones. Actually, maybe I added review in progress. But there are default statuses. These can be turned off. So it is possible your space admin, the person who maintains and manages your space, has said, you know what? We're not going to use this feature. And then you're just stuck. You'd have to go to them and ask about it. Some groups turn this off because they haven't done enough work to understand why they need them, and they haven't really educated their workers on what they're for. And that's a good example of turning off a feature because you aren't using it. You don't want to confuse folks by adding these statuses if you're not actually using them. So please keep that in mind. If you don't need the thing, maybe just disable it so it doesn't confuse folks. That said, this can give you some control over your content. For example, if I'm reading a policy page and I see it's in rough draft, that tells me something. That's like, oh, hang on, this policy isn't quite ready. I should go ask. However, if I see a policy page that has the verified status, I might go, oh, this policy is in effect, and I know I need to follow it. You can also add custom statuses. So as the admin, you can go in and add your own. And you can also allow authors to make their own statuses. I typically turn this off. I typically work with groups that have a lot of editors and people will just go make up their own status. So I typically want the control of, no, you only get, these 5 options. There are multiple use cases, especially on the HR side. For example, you might be drafting a policy and you have a policy team and one of them creates it and they put it in rough draft. And then when they're ready, they make it ready for review. And that signals you to go in and look at it and say, hey, that looks good. Or actually, Chad, can you modify it a little? You might have announcements. You write up an announcement and you have an editor go look at it. So if I was smart, maybe I would have a status on these decks and I would have it ready for review and I would send it to Kythra and then she would catch all my bad, stupid typos and I wouldn't feel bad and Chad wouldn't laugh at me. I can also use it for communications. Again, I draft up an email I'm going to send out or a Slack message and someone else comes in and reviews it for me. So there are some of these. Rennie, you're reading my mind here. Hope I'm saying your name properly. When we go back into Confluence, we'll add some statuses and then I'll pop over into automations to see what's available. When I first looked, there were not many options for combining statuses with automations. So again, this in my mind is the starting point of a review process. And it starts with your team writing down, maybe in a Confluence whiteboard, maybe on a piece of paper, what your process is. And then you can express it as these statuses. I will come back to that in a minute. So I'm going to go back into Confluence and I'm going to pop over to a page and I'm going to go edit my page. And what I'm looking for up at the top is this status button. And so once I edit this, I have the ability to make up a custom status. I'm not going to do that though, because you'll see I end up with 1,000 of them. I'll say this is maybe ready for review. And then when I update this, this status is now ready for review. Now you'll notice I can't, I could edit this page so I can change the status. The only exception to this, if I go edit this, is this verified status. If a page is verified, only its owner, so generally the person who made it, it's the person right here, or the space admin can change it. So once a page is verified, that's considered, hey, this page is done and not locked down, but the status can't change except by these groups of people. So I'll put this back. I'll say it's in progress. Typically, these statuses are just a visual indication of, hey, here's the status it's in. Tim's got a great point. There's a lot of good in-system help. So up in the top right, there's this little question mark. If you just push it, it'll pop out this sidebar. And it's guessing what's related to what I'm doing. There are other places when you mouse over something, you'll get a little, hey, do you want to learn more button? Always worth pressing just to see what Confluence has. That is the official, from Confluence, here's how this works. And I reference it all the time. Think of it like a reference book, like a dictionary you would pull out. You don't have to memorize it, but it's great to have it. So that's how I add this status. And I could then repeat this. For a company's internal documentation, if it's facing employees, this can be very helpful. Letting people know, hey, these policies are all verified or this onboarding flow is verified can be very powerful. You just have to let people know what that means and make sure your team knows when it's appropriate to change it. And that's the biggest challenge I see with this feature and any feature, making sure your team knows what it's about and why they should use it. I'm going to pop into automations, and as the last demo, I'm going to try to make an automation that does something around status. What do I want it to do? So I want to get a notification when a page is moved into the verified status. And I just want to see what the AI tool comes up with. Oh, beautiful. And there is a trigger. I love this. So I mentioned way at the start of this training, cloud platforms are great because there are just updates being crammed in there frequently. In this case, I now have a trigger when the page status changes, go do something. Now, this is just a very simple one. When this status becomes verified, email someone. But imagine instead this did something like change a restriction. When the page status, page status is moved to rough draft, restrict the page so only this person can edit it. So we can now build out a process using these automations. Again, the limits here would be if I'm on the standard tier, I only get 100 automations a month. And this requires some setup. Also, to Tim's point, there's this link right here that will pop me out to more documentation around triggers and around things. So again, I have this on-screen help that Atlassian is offering up for more documentation. So where you see that, definitely click on it and dig in. But Rennie, this could be the start of a way to manage your content. When the status becomes something, go take some action for me. And those actions depend on your needs and your process. And we are almost out of time, my friends. I do have a selfish ask, not that one, but this one. This QR code will take you to a Google form. And it's just going to ask you, what you think of these sessions. What can I do better? What do you want to see more of? What topics am I missing? I'll drop this in the chat as well. But I always appreciate your feedback on what you think of this. Yeah, Skythra. But please let me know what you think. I will keep coming up with ideas for live trainings and videos and things. But if you have something specific, like Rennie, your question around content review processes, please drop it in there. Also, if there are things you think I should be doing that I am not doing to make these better. Am I zoomed in, Chad? I am zoomed in. Oh, thank you. There is a bit of a delay in chat, Chad, so it takes like 4 or 5 seconds. So thank you for keeping me honest. We need like a code word. Let's come up with a different code word. Anyway, please use this QR code or that feedback form link to let me know what you think. Also, I spoke about this course. This is the same QR code I shared earlier. This will take you to Udemy. Again, this is paid, but this will get you a discount. And if you have some kind of hardship, shoot me an email. I want to help you out. I want you to learn. I don't want you to be frustrated. I can hook you up with free coupons. I can get you other resources. But you can also support me or use this code and give it to folks on your team. Bubble. Yes. Okay. That will be our code term. Just bubble. Also, I am available for like personal training or team trainings. So if you want to bring me in to talk to your team or have specific training you want me to do just for you or your group, please pop me an email down in the bottom left. That's robert@heen.tech. Nobody look. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. No one saw that. Next steps. There is a ton of information out there, and we did not cover everything on using Confluence for human resource teams. So please keep engaging. I'm going to get rid of that slide because that slide is just wrong. I have a template that I use, and that template was incorrect. So maybe I'll actually bring this back, and I'll go back to this. Next steps, please get hands-on. We spoke about a lot of stuff, and it will help you to go practice. So if you have Confluence, go start just using it. But also keep engaging. Talk to other people, attend other trainings, watch other videos, review the Atlassian documentation. Because if you're using Confluence, you typically don't have an option. So we're stuck with it for one way or another. So the more you learn, the better, faster, stronger you'll be at it, the less frustrated you'll be. So please keep engaging and be on the lookout for more live sessions from me. I'm doing up to 4 a week. I'm going to take a little bit of a break mid-August, but I'll be back towards the end of the month. But please keep engaging. There's a lot in here. There's a lot it can do, but at the very least, I don't want you frustrated by it. So please reach out for help. Again, I'm available for training, for sessions. I've got these videos and other things. Rennie, yes. There is a course that I'm coming out with. It's a complete guide to being a Confluence admin. Yes, Jay, my Udemy courses are all under my name. However, I'd appreciate if you shoot me an email. I can give you a discount to all of them. And that's beneficial. If you just search my name at Udemy, they keep 70% of what I would make. So I can give you a discount. You'll save some money, and I'll get a little bit more of that. So please, Jay, shoot me an email, robert@heen.tech, and I'll send you specific discount codes if you want specific courses. But Rennie, I am building out a course. It's about 5 hours right now. Everything you need to know about being a Confluence admin and being a space admin. So that one, Rennie, is probably better for you. Let me know and I'll get you early access and a link to it. Folks, I do want to thank you all. We've spent an hour and a half talking about Confluence for human resources, which I never thought I would train on over a year ago, but it's an important topic, so thank you all for learning with me. Again, please like the video. Check out my links if you're looking for ways to support me, or shoot me an email. Again, the best way to get my content will be just ask me directly, and I'll send you codes and discounts and all that stuff. And if you need it, let me know and I can provide free discounts. Again, I want you to learn. I don't want you to be frustrated and annoyed. But thank you all for learning with me. Be on the lookout for more. I'm going to keep the chat open for a bit, but please like the video. That is the simplest thing you can do to support me. And it also helps other people because they will find the content. And that will help out other folks who couldn't make it live. I'm going to double check the chat while I'm going and just see who I might have missed. Rennie, shoot me an email. And I'll follow up on you. Jay, yes. The term issues is now work items. I am part of it. They are working on updating the word issue across the board, but we're going to see it everywhere. Kythra, thank you for that call out. We do have a Discord channel. That is another great place to go. You probably need a personal email to get in, but there's constant, about 200 folks talking about Confluence, Atlassian, etc. Jay, let me know if that email came through. It's also up on the screen directly in the bottom left-hand corner, my friend. So it's just robert@heen.tech. And it's that email bottom left under the like if you like it reminder. And I'll go find, while I'm thinking about it, my LinkedIn link, another way to reach me. And if you're on LinkedIn, here I am there. But thank you all again. I really appreciate you all learning with me. Awesome. Be on the lookout for more. Thank you all so much for joining me. And welcome Miriam as my newest knowledge manager. But please have a great week wherever you all are. Be on the lookout for updates on LinkedIn, on Discord, on YouTube, all the places. Thank you again and have a great whatever day it is. Kima, I love that idea. I have a couple ideas from this session I want to do. I'll put one together on automations because I don't have a dedicated video to that. But thank you all again. Time for me to start my day, and